Could we give a very big, after I say their names, a very big, warm applause for Deb Shebish, John Andrew Bellinar, and John McGillian? I think this is the, I don't know, 6th time, something like that, that you've played for during the Heimbold Chair? Yeah, so it's great. It's great to have you guys here. My name is Joseph Lennon. I'm the Emily C. Riley Director of the Center for Irish Studies, and I wanted to welcome you all. I hope you've gotten some food and some drink and that you're settled in. We're in for a treat tonight. Before I introduce the people who are going to introduce our Heimbold Chair, I just wanted to say a few words. Every year since 2000, when Seamus Heaney celebrated our first Heimbold Chair, our Charles A. Heimbold Jr. Chair of Irish Studies, we've gathered to listen to distinguished Irish writers read and share their thoughts. This year, it has been a thrill to host Cauvery Madhavan, our 2026 Heimbold Chair. Charlie Heimbold was an English major, and he led a successful and varied career. He went from being a student of humanity's greatest creative expressions to becoming an excellent lawyer and business person. He eventually became the chair and CEO of Bristol Myers Squibb Company and a U.S. ambassador to Sweden. When he was considering where to donate funds, he chose Irish Studies and English at Villanova, having been a big fan of W.B. Yeats and his poetry. Dr. Jim Murphy was the person that sort of brought that all to be. And he passed away last May. And he stewarded this from the very beginning. I've been fortunate to do so since 2011. This is our first time having this reading without Jim Murphy, who was a presence at Villanova for over 50 years. I'd like us to all raise a glass to him, or just a moment of quiet, to remember him who always brought the two shores closer together. So to Jim Murphy. And he would really want us to be using whiskey, but I'm thrilled to have Cauvery here for a few reasons. First, Cav is such a warm and generous and friendly person. Second, we share interests in the overlapping areas of Irish literature and culture and Indian literature and culture. I've spent years doing research in it, and I was thrilled in 2004 when you read in Galway? That's when I first heard you, but I didn't meet you, I didn't know you until you came to Villanova's campus last spring. The third reason that I'm thrilled to have her here is that she's really valuing the snow and getting me to value it. She's using it to write, and she's writing up a storm. So she's here for this semester, and she's visiting classes, but I really appreciate and admire her, and we're very fortunate to have her here during this unrelenting season. I've enjoyed her novels, her articles, and have shared them with colleagues, friends, and family. Inheritance, my favorite, is set in West Cork, in the Beara Peninsula, close to where my mother's people are from, and where I've spent many summers. Her work is deftly historical and emotionally astute, but I'm gonna let our students introduce her work to you better. Natalie Manzo, a senior communication major, and Majo James, a senior political science major, are going to tell you more about her work. Come on up, folks.
Thank you for that introduction to the introduction. Cauvery Madhavan was born in Madras, India, and moved to County Kildare Island on Valentine's Day in 1986. While her career began in copywriting, Madhavan's first novel, Paddy Indian, was published in 2000. Since her first novel, she's published 3 more books: The Uncoupling, The Tainted, which was chosen as a Post-Irish Book Awards top summer reads, and was runner-up for the Society for Army Historical Research Prize for Military Fiction, and most recently, The Inheritance, which was published in 2024 and was awarded the Eastern Eye Act of Fiction Award. Madhavan currently serves as the 2026 Charles A. Heimbold Jr. Chair in Villanova Center for Irish Studies. In our class, we read The Inheritance, which follows protagonist Marlowe O'Sullivan's journey from London back to the Beara Peninsula of Ireland to claim an inherited home. Described by poet Sean Hewitt as a sumptuous, moving evocation of landscape, history, and the human spirit, a lush, green novel with a beautiful beating heart, Madhavan's artful descriptions of the Irish countryside made us want to escape Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, and explore across the pond. Our discussions also focused on the key themes of the novel. Set in the 1980s, the novel confronts the stigma of single motherhood and Ireland's painful history of forced adoption. Additionally, Madhavan's unique perspective on immigrating to Ireland, as many people were leaving the country, is reflected in Marlowe's journey. The quest to find belonging and acceptance in a new place with new people is something that we latched onto as readers, and something that kept us engaged and invested in the story until the final page.
Madhavan's work often explores the complexities of migrating identities, reflecting her own background being raised in India and later moving to Ireland. In The Inheritance, Madhavan transports the reader to Beara, an idyllic peninsula in southwest Ireland. Marlowe O'Sullivan's new home, picturesque as it is in natural beauty, is full of pain, both modern and ancient. With compassion and grace, Madhavan reveals the complexities of rural life and the human experience. Marlowe may prefer the quiet community of Beara over the bustle of London, but the peninsula is not without its own prejudices. The characters of this book are neither perfect nor irredeemable. The empathy and skill of Madhavan shines through in the love we feel for every character, despite their flaws. The love the characters have for each other is what ultimately pushes them to look beyond social conventions, support each other, and come to terms with their own complicated identities. Connecting the past with the present, Madhavan demonstrates the lingering trauma of generations past and its effects on those in the present. The echoes of this nation's own tumultuous past can be heard even in the quiet peninsula of The Inheritance. Please join us in welcoming Cauvery Madhavan.
Thank you so much, Natalie and Majo. That was just such a wonderful, generous introduction. Thank you. So I don't even know where to start. I'm really quite overwhelmed. It's such an honor for me to have been asked to come here as the Heimbold chair. I never imagined that 40 years ago when I left India, I was 23 years old and moved to Ireland, that I would even be a writer. I was just an avid reader at that time. And I realize now there's no such thing as just an avid reader, because I think it's the reading, it's being an avid reader that makes you, that sort of propels you towards writing and wanting to write. And I come from two countries. I was born in India, but really my writing soul was nurtured in Ireland. And I'm so lucky that I came from these two particular countries, which are, which have such a tradition of storytelling, and then which have all the. I was talking to the class earlier on this afternoon. Both the countries have this commonality of being, being very nosy people, and I think that's what contributes to being. To both the countries turning out so many writers, so many stories, so many epics, ancient and contemporary. So I'm lucky that I have, both the countries to draw on, but still, I pinch myself every day when I get up in the Heimbold house, which is literally just about 700 meters down the road from here. I can't believe I'm here representing Ireland. It's just the most wonderful thing. Thank you, Joseph. It was such a great opportunity. So I'm actually just going to give you a quick, very brief run through. So I started writing, 20 years after I arrived in Ireland, and this was my first book. It's called Paddy Indian, and it was loosely based on our own experiences coming to Ireland. The story is about a young Indian doctor who falls in love with an Irish girl, but it's not a love story as such. It's more a story of what happens between his mother and him because of the Irish girl. And then after that, I wrote a book that I'm really very, very proud of. It's called The Uncoupling. And The Uncoupling is pure fiction, not based on anything or anybody I know. And that's probably the reason I'm really proud of it, because it really is truly from my imagination. And it was a book, The Uncoupling is a story of a couple in their mid-60s, discovering sexuality. And then I wrote The Tainted, which is this book, and The Tainted deals with, sort of is loosely based on the mutiny of the Connaught Rangers, a regiment that was stationed in India in 1920, and they mutinied because of what was happening in Ireland with the Black and Tans. And I really enjoyed the research for the book, spent many years researching it, and then after that, after The Tainted came out, I wrote The Inheritance, and that's the book I'm here to talk about today. The Beara Peninsula is in the very southernmost tip of Ireland, and we have had a home there for the last 25 years. And I can truly say that my soul, my writing soul, all my happiness lies in Beara. And I know some of you might have traveled to West Cork, and some of you are or have families who came from West Cork. So I know that you will understand what I say. It is such a very, very special place, and I hope all of you get a chance to visit West Cork. It really and truly is very beautiful. So I'm going to read just the first page from this book. The Inheritance is a story of a young man who inherits a cottage in West Cork, and intertwined. And it's what happens when he comes from London, and how he settles into a very rural and insulated community. And then there's a thread running through the book from 400 years ago, which is a true story of the O'Sullivan Beara clan, the O'Sullivan clan, led by their chief, O'Sullivan Beara. So I'm just going to read from the first few pages. Glengariff, Ireland, April 1986. It all began the day he found out that his sister was his mother. As the minibus hiccuped its way up the steep, rutted road, Marlowe repeated that to himself. This journey started when I found out that Mary was my mam, and mam was my nana. The revelation had made his head spin for a good few days. In fact, his whole life was still spinning out of control nearly. Maybe things would be better now that he was finally in Ireland. At least that's what everyone had said repeatedly. It had taken him several weeks before he had agreed that heading to the Beara Peninsula, to the old cottage in Glengariff, might be a move in the right direction. Perhaps. It's a chance to start afresh, son, Mary had said. Don't fecking call me that, Mary. You'll never be my mam. She had teared up. Ah, Christ, don't be like that, Marlowe. It is what it is now, for God's sake. He looked at his sister and his mother, facing him across the table in their new avatars as his mother and grandmother. You keep telling me no one in Ireland, no one in Glengariff knows, but are you sure? They both nodded. No one, not in Ireland, not even here in London. Mam reached out and took his hand in hers, squeezing it hard as Mary continued. Any other way and we'd have lost you. I'd have lost you. Mam wiped her eyes. Yes, Mary would have lost you. Do you understand? 4 months later at the airport, Mary had pressed a medallion into his palm and hugged him. Write every week and ring us when you can. Mam said there used to be a phone box by the Garda station in the village. Ring me at the surgery. I know Dr. Khan won't mind. I'll ring Ma'am when I can, said Marlowe. Mrs. Kelly won't mind giving her a shout across the landing. Okay, but call me too, she said. Now, as he peered into the darkness outside the bus, he ran his finger around the smooth oval edge of the holy medal in his coat pocket. St. Jude? What the feck, Mary? I'm not a fecking lost cause. So that's just him arriving into Glengariff. I'll read another section from a little later on. So it's actually, I picked it because the person who's in this reading is one of my favorite characters in the book. Her name is Dolores. She is in her late 60s and is a single woman, a farmer, who is very hardworking and is his neighbor, very friendly with him. And he's here helping her to do some fencing. Marlowe had unloaded the stakes and had dropped them off in intervals along one side of the field. It's pure mush, Dolores. These stakes aren't going to hold steady for long, I reckon. She put both her hands on her hips. Yes, I think we better wind the sheep wire between the trees as well. It'll take some of the pressure off the stakes. Here, be a good lad now and get us a bag of staples from the trailer. I thought I had it, but I don't. My brain's been fried like these last days. They worked together, holding and hammering the fencing posts, keeping them in line with the trees. Marlowe got the feeling that Dolores was not quite herself. There was none of her usual banter, and he saw her wince a couple of times as she lifted the heavy stakes. Are you in pain, Dolores? Sure, it's nothing new. Me back's been at me as usual. Marlowe must have looked skeptical because she sighed. Sure, I may as well tell you, seeing as you have a mother and a sister, it's a bit of women's problems, you know. Marlowe wasn't sure whether she wanted to divulge anything more, so he hammered away, the nails held in his mouth, giving him an excuse to remain quiet. She set a roll of sheep wire down on the ground beside him. They've asked me to go down to the Mercy in Cork for a couple of tests. Dr. Feely said he'd just like to be sure. A waste of time, It's the animals I'm worried about, not myself. He took the nails out of his mouth. For feck's sake, Dolores. I'll worry about the animals, and you get sorted out at the hospital. Batty Moore will give a hand if I asked. He owes you after the incident with the digger, as do the Crowleys. Oh, I don't want to be collecting my debts too soon, boy, and not all at once, Is that a nugget of wisdom you're throwing at me for free, Dolores? You better believe it, she replied. In any case, Marlowe boy, it's only for 2 days. It's all routine, nothing dramatic, according to Dr. Feely. Now I'll know exactly how my heifers feel, I said to him, when strangers go poking around in my nether regions. But he didn't laugh, which had me worried. You can come up with me in the bus, Dolores. I'll collect you when you're ready the next day. Much obliged. I'll let you know when I have the appointment letter. He nodded. Sure, it's no bother at all. I wonder how Azamta's getting on. Marlowe laughed. Kitty was up to 90. I can tell you that. I'm going to stay away this weekend. I don't want to intrude. It might look I was checking up on both of them. Kitty was up to 90? Come here, let me tell you. Azamta called me after dinner last night. I thought she was there to ask me about my appointment with Dr. Feely. But no, I think she was plain feckin' nervous, blathering on about how to teach the alphabet and spelling tests and numbers, and telling me about copybooks for handwriting and such. I shut her up fair quick, gave her a hot whiskey, and told her to have an early night before I sent her off. I'm still surprised that she even volunteered. She knows it's what Mercy would have wanted her to do, to be a bit of help to the lad. Lord have mercy on his soul. He was a good man and took his duty as Kitty's godfather so seriously. She means to honor his memory, Plus, she's staring loneliness in the face, and as she told me herself, it's an ugly sight. Are you ever lonely, Dolores? And then he thought to himself, no, I can't take that back. It's just a stupid question, can I? She kicked a few stones with her boots before she spoke. Every minute of every day, Marlowe, boy, every minute of every day. But I wouldn't exchange that for being any man's wife. It's a pity now I didn't have children because of that. I would have been a good mother, a very good one for sure. I'm sorry, Dolores. I was out of order there. Ah, now, boy, you're allowed to ask. Anybody that could coax a blind calf into thinking it's a dog is allowed to ask stupid questions. Oh, I shouldn't have. I mean, I know what happened. I mean, with the priest all those years ago. Oh, jeez, I'm making it worse, aren't I? Listen, boy, I learned never to be ashamed of my circumstances. Shame leads to secrets, the source of every unhappiness. It's better to wear your story on the outside, like an armor. She slapped him on his back. Now, don't feel bad. I got that off my chest, too. So, do you have any plans? So that's it. Thank you. Is that okay, Joseph? I'm happy to take questions, I think.
People have questions. I'm going to take this opportunity just to say a couple of words also. There are books for sale outside, and they're one for $20 and two for $35. Tainted and The Inheritance are there. Also, as you're gathering, people gathering your questions, your thoughts, we have two things that I want to announce. First, we have a world-class play from Ireland that's going to be here called Bella, about traditional Irish music, and that is March 11th through the 13th over in the Mullen Center. Get your tickets now. And the second thing is that it's kind of not that big of a deal, but the Irish Prime Minister is going to come. So on March 14th, this Saturday. So it is a big deal. So he's going to be giving a policy talk at Villanova over in the Mullen Center. So you'll be getting announcements about all of that. I hope you've been thinking of questions. I want to ask questions, but I'm going to let you ask questions to Cauvery directly. Please, Megan.
Hi, Megan. Not yet. Not yet. Yeah.
Just a silly question, a real question, which is, I was curious. I missed the introduction, so sorry, so I should not be talking. But how you weave together political events with the intimate stories that you tell. How do you decide which events to bring into the character's lives?
Yeah, that's a great question, which I kind of ask myself a lot, even now as I'm writing my new book, because it spans 90 years in India and has a good few real Irish people in it, and you really have to weigh up the research of the time period, what's going on in the country, and how it's going to. You want the book to to reflect what's going on in the country, but yet I'm writing fiction. I don't want it to become a bad history book. I want it to be a good book of fiction. So my answer is with great care. And I think the trick is to limit the amount of history you're shoving into your book just because you researched it. And actually, I was saying to Alan's class earlier on that a lot of the research I would do is really just to inform me. I don't necessarily I'd say I put maybe 1 or 2% of what I research actually into the book. So it's more, the research is more, to inform me so that I have a very clear picture in my mind's eye, and I don't have to think too much about the period details when I'm writing. So, if you're talking about a 90-year time span, or even like with The Inheritance, if you're talking about the 1980s, there is a lot of political stuff that I would have loved to have brought in, but I had to hold back. Yeah. Yeah, I have a question there. Yeah, go ahead, please, Michael.
One of the big events of the book is a tragedy of slaughter of women and children that happened 400 years before. I didn't know about it. When the book came out, did the people in the Beara Peninsula, were they
Yeah, again, I think it's because, the story of O'Sullivan Berra, the slaughter of the clan, and then the subsequent, the hiding in the forest, and then the subsequent, fleeing, that 16-day march that they did from Glengariff to the north of Ireland. It kind of got lost in history, and this is my own theorizing as an amateur historian or wannabe amateur historian, is that there was so much of shame attached to that episode with the O'Sullivans because so much of the massacre was Irish on Irish. The person who led the English onto Dursey Island, who showed the English how to approach the island, because it was the waters around the island are very treacherous. And even today, it's a cable car that takes you over. It's the only cable car over the sea in all of Europe. It's a cable car that takes you to the island. Approaching it by boat is still so dangerous. So, but it was it was an Irishman. It was actually O'Sullivan Berra's cousin who led the English who showed the English the way onto the island. So, I mean, so it's not something that, bards would have sung about or, people would have eulogized, because it was a matter of shame. Now, from that man's point of view, Dennis O'Sullivan, who led the English onto the island, it wasn't a matter of shame. What had happened was O'Sullivan Berra had kidnapped his wife, and he was just being a good husband. He wanted his wife back, and he got her back. So, from his point of view, he was a hero. So there's so many mixed, depending on whose point of view you were looking at. And then also, when they left the forest and went to Leitrim, all the way they were attacked by Irish clans but why were they attacked by those Irish clans? Because those clans had been threatened by the English. If you don't actively stop them, you will suffer the same fate. So I think there was so much shame attached to the whole story that it was never told. So yes, you're right. A lot of people didn't know about it. Even people living in Berra didn't know. It's quite sad. But I think that's. I think that's why there are so many sad but wonderful stories to be told between both the countries. Wherever there's secrets, there's stories to be told.
Could you tell us about the new work that you're doing?
Yeah, I'm really, really excited about my new book. It's a bit daunting because I haven't written a book which has such a, the scope is much bigger than anything that I have ever attempted before. Because it actually spans 90 years. So it's not, I haven't taken, 1986 and, 1601. I haven't just sort of picked out years, but it actually spans 90 years. So it's a story of it's called The Man Who Prayed for Daughters. That's the name of the book. And it's a story that spans 90 years from when he's 12 years old. It starts on the day of his wedding. He's getting married to a 10-year-old. Child marriage was very common in India in those days, in the 1930s. And it follows the two of them till 2010, till he is in his 90s. And it's the story of why he prayed for a daughter, a granddaughter, a great-granddaughter, and a great-great-granddaughter. And interspersed in the story are three, possibly four real Irish people who were in India at that time, and the principal characters. Two of the principal Irish characters are James and Margaret Cousins, and Joseph would know of them because he has researched their lives. It was just such a coincidence. I was telling Joseph about this when I met him the first time. Oh, there's this Irish couple, you may not have heard of them. And of course, it turns out that he's actually written a book about them. So, yeah, so my main character, this young boy who we meet when he's 12 years old on his wedding day, he's actually going to be a gardener in their house, and he's going to witness a good bit of history happening because they were hugely involved in the Indian freedom struggle. So that comes back to what you were saying, Megan. I'm trying to bring in a bit of history without it being a history book. So hopefully I'll do the job properly. Sorry, I didn't get the last bit, Major. Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no doubt that there is a relationship, and we have a very fine academic, Professor Jane Ohlmeyer. She is a Trinity College a professor in Trinity College, and she is a historian of empire, and she has written extensively and researched extensively about the fact that Britain tried out all their they experimented in Ireland, and whatever success, in whatever way they were managing it as a colony, wherever they had success, they used those techniques in India. They used the same techniques of repression in India. So Ireland was the teething ground. Ireland was the experiment that they continued, for so many hundreds of years, and then they used their best of that terrible knowledge, to dominate India. And I think both the countries, and I know I'll be castigated for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Ireland has emerged from that colonial mindset. India hasn't. I think India, and I say this because I love India, and I say it despite that. Because of that India still has an inferiority complex. And there's this constant need to prove yourself. You don't need to. You don't need to. You just need to get on with it. You don't need to keep on saying, oh, such and such thing happened 5,000 years ago, such and such thing happened, we invented this and we invented that. It doesn't matter. You don't need to prove it. You are a great country. So, but I think Ireland has actually crossed that thing, has crossed that colonial mindset, and is a very confident country now. India is just catching up on that confidence. I know if this is ever heard around anywhere, I would actually be flayed for saying that. And I intend to bring a bit of that into the book I'm writing now, because the reason he keeps praying for these daughters is because he wants to get into the Guinness Book of Records, as he wants that photograph of the 6 generations, because the existing record at the moment, and I think it's still the record, is 5 generations of women, and it's an American record, I think, from Utah. Of 5 generations of women photographed together, and he wants to have 6 generations of women, and it's how he schemes, towards the end for that to happen, so that he can photograph his 6 together and get into the Guinness Book of Records. And it's a known fact. I don't know whether you are aware of it. I know you have an Indian background, but Indians are absolutely crazy about the Guinness Book of Records. I mean, literally, it doesn't matter whether you have the longest nail or whether you have the longest beard or whatever, they are absolutely mad for and I think that actually comes from this, how would you even explain it? Can you imagine having an inferiority and a superiority complex at the same time? That's what it is, It's a very interesting thing to explore as a novelist. Probably get disbarred from going to India ever again, but thanks for that. It's a very long, convoluted answer to your question.
You've seen Ireland change a lot since 1986. What are some of the big changes that you think have been significant, maybe along those lines of Ireland moving into confidence?
Yeah.
It's really been in those
Yeah, because I think, you know, when you live in the shadow of a colonial power, I think the best thing Ireland ever did was not to belong to the Commonwealth. You know, so when we cut ties, we just literally, we cut it, you know, and that was it. Oh yeah, sure. So you know, all the ex-colonies of Britain form what is called the Commonwealth of countries, and every one of the countries that belong to the Commonwealth are all, you know, the ex-colonies of the UK. Ireland is an exception. We're the only ones that did not join the Commonwealth, and many of the Commonwealth countries still consider. Would actually honor the king as the king now, but the queen earlier on as head of state, like Australia, you know. And it's absolutely nuts in this day and age for any country that's like 1,000 miles away. Sorry, that's me being a very Republican person there. Yeah, but coming back to what you were saying, Joseph, you know, about Ireland. So I mean, the changes that have come about in Ireland are so amazing. And I'll just give you two examples. One is, you know, when Leo Varadkar was appointed as, when Leo Varadkar became the Prime Minister of Ireland, nowhere, absolutely nowhere in his campaign, even after he was, you know, inaugurated as the Prime Minister, was there ever a single, you know, reference to him being gay. The reference to him being gay came the next day, the day after they had won, and you know, when the country woke up to knowing that he was going to be Prime Minister. The reference came the next day from, you know, media organizations from the rest of the world saying, "Wow, look at Ireland, you know, a Catholic country, you know, has a openly gay Prime Minister." And that was when the whole country said, "Well, actually, yeah, you know, I'm sure we all knew it, you know, but it was never an issue." And I think that really shows how much Ireland changed, you know, in the 40 years that I've been here. But I mean, so at that time it was in the 30 years that I'd been in Ireland, you know, where it went from being illegal to having a gay Prime Minister, you know. That was one. And the other example was that it was the first country in the entire world to bring in, you know, abortion rights by referendum, not by legislation. So the whole country voted, and the majority voted for it. Now, whether you're for it or against it is not the point. What I'm trying to say is that, you know, it was the first country in the whole world where it was not done by legislation. They just said, right, let's get the people to vote. And I think that's just incredible, you know, and those two things are so, you know, it's like an earthquake, you know, bigger than an earthquake, that when you sit back and think, you just think, my God, how did that happen in just a span of, you know, 30 years? So. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And maybe there's a way that your current project is asking you to work on different muscles, but I feel like one of the things writers talk about time and again is that you can think you've got some sort of system down, like got it.
Yeah.
And then you start a new project and it's, I don't got it.
Yeah.
Because it's asking us to sort of reconstitute ourselves.
For sure.
New arts.
Yeah, for sure. Because, you know, it happened to me when I started The Inheritance, and it happened to me when I started this new book that I'm writing now. Both times, you know, you just think, I'll never be able to write another one like that. I just won't be able to write. And I actually had a conversation with my publisher, and she really gave me a telling off. And she said, you are to actually forget that you ever wrote any of those books. You have never written before. You are just writing this one. Just forget about The Inheritance, forget about The Tainted, Forget about all the blurbs and the awards and all of that. Just forget about it. And you are just going to approach this book like you've never written anything before. Because, you can be so full of self-doubt. And I am, constantly full of self-doubt. And because I don't plot my books, I do have to then tell myself, you did it before, you will do it again. That just trust the process. This writing by headlights where, only the first few pages are lit and, you're just hoping that your characters will lead you and tell you where to go. And the last few days being snowbound, the last few weeks being snowbound, it actually just sort of suddenly it fell into place, and I was able to write, and I am being led down a path I didn't expect in the book, and when that happens, then you're on a roll. So I think for me, the thing that I have to tell myself is to trust the process. And the other thing I have to tell myself is not to procrastinate. So that the two things.
Thank you all for being here, and please get your book signed, come up, talk to Mary, and join me in giving a really giant.
Thank you.